So good evening, everyone. This is the Conservation Commission meeting of July 20th. It's just after 6 p.m. and there's a quorum of the Conservation Commission. I'm just going to read the preamble. Consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. Public may not physically attend the meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. And I'll turn it over to the chairs.
Thank you, Greg. I don't know if you want to do a roll call for all the commissioners first.
Okay, roll call of present commissioners. Anjo Jackson,
Here.
Robert Sherman,
Here.
Barry Gradwall,
Here.
Robert Gullah,
Here.
Dave Sargent,
Here.
William Cook,
Here.
and Linda Charpentier.
Here.
Okay, all are present.
Wow, full commission. I can't remember the last time we had one of these, which is great. Next up would be the administrative briefing portion. I don't know if you want to update the
Yeah,
public.
I'll just update the members and also the public. So we have been without a conservation agent for the city for quite some time now, since June 2nd. We had a successful recruitment and we will have a new agent. Chuck Shade will be starting on August 3rd. So we're really excited to have him. He comes with great background and experience, and I think he'll do very well in assisting the commission with its work. And we also just recently posted a assistant conservation agent position. It's located, out in the world in a number of places, in addition to our city website, on the MMA website, LinkedIn, a number of locations, hoping to really recruit, again, another great addition to the conservation staff so that they can serve the commission and also the public. Because as somebody who's filling in, there's no shortage of inquiries and project review and project monitoring. So we're looking forward to those additional staff.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Whoa.
Oop.
There we went off the, you had the agenda posted.
There you go. Sorry.
Okay. So next up was still in the administrative briefing. Is there anything else, Greg, to add to that, or are you good?
I'm good for now.
Excellent. Next up would be the public comment period of the meeting. This is the period, point where the public is welcome to speak on conservation issues that are not, I repeat, not on tonight's agenda. If anybody wishes to speak under the public comment period, you may do so now by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
So I am not seeing any raised hands, and I also note that there are 48 attendees on this meeting this evening.
Okay, seeing none here, none in the public comment section, we will move on to the minutes review and approval. We have June 15th, 2022.
Commissioner Jackson moves to approve the minutes for the Conservation Commission meeting of June 15th, 2022 as amended.
Charpentier seconds.
Okay, roll call vote. Member Jackson,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Gullah,
Abstaining.
okay, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
and Member Cook.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Next up, continued business. First project, RDA 1703, Salt Island Road, Salt Island LLC. Evan Govindaran from DeRosa Environmental representing. Is she here?
And I'm promoting Mike DeRosa as well as Evan.
Whoops, for the record, Mike DeRosa. And I believe Evan's on as well. So since the last meeting, we met with the applicants, the Martignettes, and we we heard what the commission had to say, and we heard what the concerned citizens had to say. We reevaluated the entire project. We submitted a set of supplemental information to the commission. And Greg, if I could share my screen, would that be? Perfect,
Sure.
yeah.
Hold on one sec.
No, I can do
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Can you guys see that?
Yes.
And so this is Salt Island. Essentially, we have taken out the entire goat strategy completely. So there are no goats as part of this project anymore. It is essentially going to be a targeted removal of poison ivy, greenbrier, and Phragmites. There's a stand of Phragmites. I don't know if you can see my
Yeah.
cursor, but
Sure.
in that area. And then the primary area is up in here where most of the people that utilize the property are hanging out in here. And this is where the Martin Yetis are concerned about poison ivy. And one of their sons is extremely affected by poison ivy, had to be rushed to the hospital the last time. So it's very much an issue for them from a health point of view. And I'm sure the public that's out here too is also would like to see the poison ivy gone. We have contacted a specialist group out of New Hampshire that does not use chemicals. They only use mechanical removal. They basically dress up in Tyvek suits. They tape up like they're at a hazardous waste site. They hand remove and use hand tools to remove it. They will bag it, and that will all be removed from the island and taken off site to their transfer station. Our group will handle the greenbrier, and we handle that just by multiple cuttings. So we hand cut. Greenbrier is pretty deeply rooted, so we don't really pull it, but we just cut it repeatedly during the growing season, and that after one growing season, it's pretty much gone. The Phragmites we treat the same way, so it's cutting and repeat cutting during the summer season, the growing season. So it'll be, the death of 1,000 cuts strategy. Any debris we'll either remove or we will burn on site, depending on how much volume we have. I don't anticipate a lot. So we may just end up bagging it and taking it off, just like the poison ivy. We had two, when I was preparing for the meeting, Evan and I, we were reminded that, or forgot that we were supposed to change the Black-Eyed Susan and Showy Goldenrod. It was a comment, I think, from one of the concerned citizens. So we took those out and we're going to substitute pink tick seed and seaside goldenrod. Both of those should do well here. And they're both on the CZM recommended list for coastal plantings. I believe that's all the changes that we had. We're both here to take questions from the commission and the concerned citizens, if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeRosa. So the next part of this would be to get public comments. Before we do that, again, I want to say, I know there's going to be, I'm sure, a third or more of the people waiting in the queue are monitoring this project. Please try not to repeat this. We have not had an agent for 2 months. We have an incredible backlog here to get through. So please do not repeat if you can avoid it, not repeat other people's comments or concerns. Stick with what's here. This is what's in front of us, is what we're reviewing. We're not talking about what could be or what has been. We want to just focus on the project at hand. With that said, I will open up for public comments. If anybody wishes to speak, you may do so by hitting the raise your hand button. at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
So the first person I see is Janet Knott.
Hello?
Hi, Commissioners. Good evening. Good evening, Greg. My name's Jane Knott. Janet Knott is my
Oh,
sister.
sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. I live at 29 Salt Island Road in Gloucester, and I'm an expert in environmental engineering, hydrology, and coastal wetlands. With respect to Salt Island, I'm part of a group of over 400 citizens who operate under the name of Save Salt Island. Many of these people are here tonight, and we're all opposed to the activities described by RDA 1703 and its amendments, namely the installation of the 38 posts that were done and the cutting of the vegetation without a permit last summer, and the proposed continued removal or destruction of the Salt Island's vegetation. I would just like to point out that approximately 80% of Salt Island is coastal bank, as defined by the Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management's guidance, and the rest of the island falls within the 100-foot buffer zone. Clearly, more than 3/4 of Salt Island is a protected resource area under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. So I'll just read briefly from the Wetlands Protection Act. I'll only read the relevant sections. No person shall remove, fill, dredge, or alter any bank without filing a written notice of intent, including plans to describe the proposed activity and its effect on the environment, and must comply with an order of conditions provided that all appeal periods have elapsed. Alter, according to the regulations, means to change the condition of any area subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act, and includes, among many other things, the destruction of vegetation and the changing of pre-existing drainage characteristics, flow patterns, sedimentation patterns, and flood retention areas. I believe that any kind of alteration of vegetation, including cutting, removal of whole plants like was described in the application. By the way, that was just posted today, so we didn't have much time to look at it, but we did review it briefly. So alteration of vegetation would alter sedimentation, erosion, drainage patterns, things like that have been described. The applicant refers repeatedly to restoration areas after whole plant removal on Salt Island, and according to the Wetlands Protection Act, an ecological restoration project is one whose primary purpose is to restore or otherwise improve the natural capacity of a resource area to protect and sustain the interest identified in the law, when these interests have been degraded or destroyed by man-made influences. This does not apply to an uninhabited and natural Salt Island, and even if it did, any ecological restoration project would require a notice of intent. So we respectfully submit that the Conservation Commission must find that the proposed work falls under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance because vegetation destruction is proposed to occur within the coastal bank, a protected resource area of both the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. The Commission must also require that the applicant remove the fence posts and threaded rods improperly drilled into the coastal bank. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Recognizing Gary Morgan.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name's Gary Morgan. I live at 27 Salt Island Road. And I'd like to bring up a concern I have regarding conflict of interest. And specifically, I have greatly respected Commissioner Jackson's recusals in the past on issues around this area, condos on Cliff Road and Witham Street, McNamara's house building, and it was very appropriate, I thought, and to recuse herself from that. And in this case, given the proximity of where she or where you live, I don't know if I'm supposed to speak to you directly or not, but where you live, being an officer of the Briar Neck Association, a longtime member, and these other past recusals as precedent, in addition to saying at a past meeting, I remember, and I paraphrase, this issue affects me more than anyone. So given those statements, I would just like to ask the question of how do you justify choosing not to recuse yourself from this issue? Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody
When
else?
when would you like me to reply to that?
It's up to you, Angel. If you
Okay.
want- Go ahead.
First of all, in terms of affecting me, I meant in terms of viewing the work that would be ongoing over there. It does not affect me financially in any way, which is usually the basis for recusal. Second of all, I did discuss recusal with my higher ups, and I was asked actually by both neighbors as well as Conservation Commission agent to participate in this. So reluctantly, I did. I am happy to recuse myself if people feel that's appropriate, but I feel that I did go through the appropriate steps. And the Briar Neck Association has nothing to do with this.
Thank you, Angel.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody else out in the queue, Greg?
Oh, I just saw a hand go away. I think Chris Leahy may have dropped off the call. He initially had his hand up. I don't see any further hands at this point. No, I do. Oh, no, I don't.
Someone's got a
Chris, if
little-
you'd like to speak, leave your hand up. I'll move on to Hazel Hewitt.
Hello,
Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
So I am basically a bird watcher. I'm an inhabitant of East Gloucester, often visit the beach. And I understand that this Salt Island falls within the group of islands that are an important bird protected area. So it seems to me that any changes that are suggested, it would be very helpful to work with Mas Audubon or someone like Chris Leahy in terms of what would be best for habitat if ecological environmental considerations for natural habitat are what everybody's working towards. That I know you said don't think about the future. I'm not quite sure how to respond helpfully without making that comment. And one other comment I wanted to make, I was involved when there was a proposal to do some construction on the back shore, and I had not realized, but was led to understand by one of the experts I consulted, rocky shorelines are incredibly sensitive, and there's important habitat for young fish, which is important for the local fishing industry as well as recreational fishing. So any kind of disturbance of soil that can lead to soil being washed down and filling in gaps in the rocky shore around Salt Island would be something that should be very carefully considered before anybody started to do it. So those are my two comments that I believe should be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay, I see Warren Smith.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
I hear someone. Are you Mr.?
Warren, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 41 Salt Island Road. My comment is, you know what, I'm looking at the island right now. And those posts, everybody says, why are those there? And as I say, I have no idea. And I look at it and say, is that part of the island? Of course not. They're an eyesore. I still don't understand how and why they were put there. So please put in that into your consideration of decisions. But and also please get them removed. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, I'm recognizing, I think it's Mary McNamara. I think her name got truncated.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just have a question. I was wondering if the applicant could educate us as to how they are going to get to the island and also how they are going to be removing all of the debris from the island and how they're going to transport back and forth.
Is that your only question?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to respond to that just briefly. The commission's really here to look at again, the project at hand. Access to and from really comes under someone else's purview. I know it's not ours. So I would look into those bodies that manage that scenario as far as access and deed rights. That's not what we do here. We have a project in front of us. Basically, it's a replanting project. It's an invasive removal project. All we're really allowed to do again is to review the project in front of us at this day. Is there anyone else, Greg?
Colette Knowlton.
Hello?
John Knowlton.
Okay.
Letters my way.
If this were to be allowed, removing the vegetation and replanting with other vegetation, I'd be very concerned on how that vegetation may grow, seeing how weather has been lately and how a real hostile environment it can be in that island. And without any watering or taking care of things, I just don't see how, I don't think things would survive. And there'd be a lot of erosion, which would be very detrimental to the shellfish beds, the fishing around there, and just the whole degradation of the whole island. So maybe someone could explain how you can really replant in that type of situation where there's no water. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to allow Chris to speak because his hand goes up and down.
Hello, Chris? Hello?
Say hand down. So I was working on it. So you can hear me now, assuming me?
We can.
Okay. I'm very glad to hear that the goat proposal is off the table, so to speak. We don't want goats on the table, much less on Salt Island. So that's a good thing. I should say also that I am not a resident of Salt Island. Chris Leahy, I live at 67 Perkins Street in Gloucester, in town, essentially. It may be of some relevance to note that I am retired from the Massachusetts Audubon Society, where I was Director of Conservation for over 30 years, and my responsibility included the ecological management of 35,000 acres of wildlife sanctuaries throughout the state. I've been a naturalist since I was a kid, so I'm familiar with the flora and fauna of the state. So goats are being gone is good. However, the current plan does not, in my view, demonstrate any practical need for the drastic proposal, the drastic approach to what might be accomplished with what seems to me to be judicial pruning. What's lacking in the very broadest sense, from my point of view, is the absence of an overall goal. Now, I understand that there's a family health issue here, and believe me, I am sympathetic to that. I have a special needs son. I, feel their pain, so to speak, in that, and certainly would want no harm to come to him. However, I'm wondering if the drastic approach here is the way to solve that problem. I doubt, given the prevalence of the oils poison ivy, that he would be safe, even given this kind of removal. And isn't it kind of draconian to do this gross removal of native vegetation, after all, under the idea that it's a threat to human health and safety? I don't think that's an accurate statement, although it may be clear that it is a problem with this person's health and safety, which of course we don't want to compromise. The question is, does the solution fit the problem? If the goal is to minimize human contacts with these two species, which I will keep emphasizing are native species, they are not invasive. You may not wanting them, quote unquote, invading your backyard or your garden, but they are native species which have significant value for wildlife, especially birds, but many other things as well, both in terms of their fruiting bodies and shelter for wintering and young birds of the season. I think one of the things, if again going forward with some kind of alternative solution, if there could be, we could have interpretive signs. I've recently spent quite a lot of time out there. And, I see people, especially when the tombola was open, coming out, and I often ask them, especially the kids, I say, do you know about poison ivy? And often they're like, no. And so I point it out to them. And it strikes me that what would be needed if we're trying to protect the general public from poison ivy would be, we could have some interpretive signs showing what it looks like, where it is, and a brief message saying, you don't want to roll around in this stuff. It can cause you some problems, rather than trying to eradicate it all with these sort of drastic measures. So following the proposed extreme labor-intensive and doubtfully effective, in my view, plant removal process, the proponents hope to introduce a variety of wildflowers and grasses to replace the shrubs. There are several flaws in this plan. There is nothing.
Sir, you're allowed 3 minutes by law. We need to keep this moving. I hope
okay. Okay, well, I can stop now if you want. I'm just saying, just to summarize, that there's nothing wrong with the vegetation on the island, and that it's doubtful that the plants that people are planning to introduce are unlikely to take. Thanks very much. I'm sorry if I ran over time.
No, thank you.
And I think that's all I see at the moment. There are no more raised hands.
Okay, do you want to comment on that, Mrs. DeRosa? I don't know if you kept.
Fine, yeah, I took notes on everybody's comments, and I'll respond to them. We'll start with Jane Knotts. No, we're fully aware that the island. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
So just we don't need the names of people. We just need the information.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're fully aware that the coastal bank and the island is certainly within all the wetland resource areas and jurisdictions. We do agree that we need to remove those rods and fence posts. I think those were installed in anticipation of the goats. And since the goats are gone, there's no reason to have those posts there. So we would definitely agree to remove those as part of the determination of applicability. Let's see, posts need to be removed. So as far as access to the island and the removal of the debris, obviously it'll be tide dependent. It'll just be accessed by foot during low tides. Work will be done and then everything will be removed the same day that the work is completed. And it is largely just hand pulling of the poison ivy. It's a very shallow rooted vine. I was pulling it today on another site, and we're not going to deplete the entire poison ivy population from the island. We just want to focus on the areas where there's trails and where people have access. So it's not a wholesale drastic or gross removal approach. It's just targeted along the trail so that people are not unnecessarily coming in contact with it. We're just going to use seed to replant. So we're not going to, and we're very sensitive to this idea of watering. We're not obviously going to be planting containerized stock out there. Both logistically, it'd be too difficult to bring material there, and then watering them in and everything else is just too much effort. So it's a very low key, scratching the soil, getting the seed in contact with the soil, hay mulch, and that's it. And we're just going to rely on rain. So what I'd like to do is time this so the removal is sort of late March, early April. We get the seed, the stuff removed, the seed goes in place, and then we get the spring rains to establish what gets established. So it's a very low key, not an extensive removal by any stretch of the imagination. We've drastically reduced, if we want to use that word, drastically reduced the scope of this. So I think I hit everything. Evan, did I miss anything? I think I got everybody's comments. But we are clearly of the same mind that this area is a very sensitive area. And we're fully aware of that. So if there's any questions from others or the commission, we can.
I'm going to do roll call comments, all the commissioners. You don't answer again, same with the public. Let us go through our comments or questions and take note, and then we'll circle back to you to wrap up. So, Greg, you want to do roll call comments? Roll call comments.
Okay, Member Cook?
Well, I'll go back to, and the statement was made by someone in the public about whether or not an RDA is applicable. And I believe there's a lot of validity to that. So we may want to consider replacing this with an NOI that also brings in National Heritage and a few other groups. The other part that really bothers me, and we became aware of this with the heavy brush cutting, I'm going to call them trees for lack of a better term, that were all cut down before we could get there and anything taken place, because they had brought heavy equipment and everything out on the beach. Saw nothing in here about restoration of any of that stuff. So I think it's, I think we should probably push back and request an NOI, but we also need it to be restored to replace the plantings that were cut down in violation of everything initially. Those are my comments.
Okay, Member Charpentier?
First of all, I support Commissioner Cook's comments, and for both the NOI and the restoration plan. I just want to say that I haven't been in favor of this project from the very beginning. I just don't understand why it happened the way it did without even contacting the commission initially. And I guess the one question that I have is I keep hearing about people using the island, and I just would like to know, who are those people? Are they family and friends? or is it something that's going to happen for the general public? That would help me to understand or to try to understand what's really going on here.
Member
That's it.
Gradwell?
I go along with Bill Cook's idea that this is not sufficient. I was on the beach last week during low tide, and there was an extreme low tide, and the beach people were just walking out there and having a good time and walking back in. So unless you're going to put a fence across the path, people are going to be going out there. How is it that you're going to remove all the fence posts and the re-rod that was put out there without having direct access to the island? That's it.
Member Sargent?
I want to thank the applicant for the revisions, but I agree with Commissioner Cook wholeheartedly. Jurisdictionally, this should be an NOI because of the sensitive resource areas present within the coastal bank, as well as other resource areas that are in close proximity. Thank you.
Member Sherman?
You're muted, Bob.
Sorry. I have nothing further to say than what hasn't already been said by other commissioners.
Okay. Member Jackson?
I have an additional comment. I share the concern about taking care of the newly proposed new plantings, and my concern of removing plants and replanting in the spring is that is nesting season. And I'm not sure that we want to disturb the birds there during nesting season.
And Member Gallo?
I personally concur with all my other fellow commissioners on this. This to me just seems, it's a nice presentation. I get what you're trying to do, but I don't know why we're doing it. I think at this point, if there was a life safety issue as it relates to poison ivy, we all know anything else could grow there, anything else. I feel bad for the child. I'm not saying that nobody should, be upset by what happened. But personally, I think this thing tends to protect itself, and maybe that's one of the ways it does it. I agree with my commissioners at this point. I can't vote for this project as is. I'd either vote for a denial, a positive determination, or just push it into a notice of intent. But if this comes back in any way, shape, or form as it is now, I would probably be voting the similar way. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me at this time, or why we want to try and revegetate areas that'll probably come back on their own. It might be that some of it comes back as poison ivy. Then we get taking posts out. I mean, it feels like it's just too much. I think it should just be left alone at this point. Those are my thoughts. So with that, we've made comments. I don't know how you want to proceed, Mr. DeRosa. If you want to make a few more comments, if you want to ask for a continuation, it's up to you, or a vote. That's your call as well.
No, I think we will ask for a continuation, but just to summarize, just so we're clear what we're hearing. So we're definitely hearing the commission wants a notice of intent application. We heard that loud and clear. As far as and Joe's comments, we would do the removal before nesting season. We're clearly plugged into that timeline. We would not want to be doing this, I'm talking about March, which is before nesting season. So we would do March. We would be seeding just to, if there's any disturbed soils, to stabilize those soils. That's why we're proposing the seed. And we thought it'd be good for pollinator habitat to get some native flowering stuff in there. That's why we're doing that. But I understand the commission's concern about the NOI. I understand Rob's comment about, what is the motivation for doing this? Our clients are very interested in making that a safe place for their family to walk. Obviously for the public as well. The public uses it more than they use it. So that's really it. I don't think there's a big overriding goal here. It's just really to make it a safe place. If it was, in their backyard or something, they would do it on the weekend, but they're in a goldfish bowl out here, and everybody can see them, and it's a very important habitat. We don't argue that at all. But we have to go through the process, so that's why we're in front of you for this.
And I don't think anybody should be going on their property. That's their property. And I applaud them for not, from what I know, I don't live over there. There aren't signs all over it saying keep up. But again, my concern for you and your client, who I hope is listening, is that I don't know where you're gonna go with this, whether it's, I'm not talking about future projects. This particular project, even if you come back with a notice of intent, I have a feeling you're gonna end up with the same result. So I would talk to clients and get, I think it's an important discussion to have with them and let them know that even with a notice of intent, I don't know if it's going to change what's really the concerns of the conservation.
Yeah, and it may not change the final outcome. I understand.
Okay.
That's why I'd like to continue. And we will have that conversation with them. I think I'm also hearing, though, that the commission wants the posts gone. They were installed, I think, without a permit, correct? So I think those probably should get removed, and we'll communicate that as well. But absent that, I think we would ask for a continuance at this time to the next scheduled meeting, and then we will be back in touch with Greg with comments, or with the new, is it Chuck, the new agent?
Excellent.
Yes, maybe. So that's all.
Thank you very much, Mrs. DeRosa.
Thank you, everyone.
This,
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue RDA, what's the RDA number?
1703.
Yes, 1703 to the Conservation Commission meeting of July 3rd,
August
August
3rd.
3rd.
August 3rd, sorry.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call vote. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes,
Member Sherman,
Yes,
Member Jackson,
Yes,
and Member Gullo.
yes. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. You too.
All right, next up is notice of intent 20-2827, 105 Winger Chic, lots A and B, 125 Winger Chic LLC. Joel Pavaza, Seaside Legal, request to continue to August 3rd.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282827 at 105 Winger Chic Road to the Conservation Commission meeting of August 3rd.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
yes,
Member Sergeant,
yes,
Member Sherman,
yes,
Member Jackson,
Yes,
Member Gullo.
To be at least keep doing what I have been, I'm going to recuse.
Okay.
Or abstain, I should say. Next up, notice of intent 20-2848, 12 Sumner Street, Heidi Fialo, John Jutta Gateway Consultants. Previously continued to July 20th, I'm assuming, and there it is, request to continue to August 3rd.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 0282848 at 12 Sumner Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of August 3rd.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. Next up, notice of intent 28-2854624 Western Avenue, Dockside Properties LLC, John Jetta Gateway Consulting representing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants for this property at 624 Western Ave. Just to recap, this is a septic system replacement in the buffer zone to offsite wetlands. We were in front of the board on June 1st and then again on the 15th of June. And at that time, I think Chairman Gullo requested that we continue to tonight to give him an opportunity to go out and take a look at the property, which we agreed. Again, we're just replacing a septic system here. We're not changing any kind of drainage that's may or may not be coming out of this foundation. And there's going to be no impact. If there is any impact from any subsurface drainage or surface drainage, then I think it was discussed at the last hearing that the contractor would notify the commission directly before proceeding with any kind of alterations of any drain pipes that may be going off the property. And that is a brief recap, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, right off the gate, I'll open up to public comment. If anybody who in public wishes to speak to the project at 624 Western Ave, you may do so now by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
And I am not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. So why don't we go to commissioner comment? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Roll call comment for commissioners, Greg?
Member Cook,
No additional comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Gradwall,
No comment.
Member Sergeant,
No comment.
Member Sherman,
No comment.
Member Jackson,
I would like to hear the results of the site visit.
From mine?
Yes.
Yeah, so I did go out there. Obviously, I did not, or tried not to. It was kind of hard to get on the property proper. I did go around the back. I did see, again, there's been very little rain, so I didn't notice any real water movement at the time, but you could tell it's a channelized area, it's a stream, or an intermittent stream at that. But I kept, after I was done with my walk, I'm going to say it again, I'm not there to look at that pipe. I was there to look at this, what's proposed. And what's proposed is a septic system. And I couldn't see any impacts. If anything, it's gonna potentially help the stream itself or the intermittent stream, but obviously it's not going to help the neighbors downstream. Unfortunately, that's not our purview here, but I could see what they're dealing with, and it's unfortunate. And hopefully they can find a way to resolve it as a neighborhood or with the city. But we're here for a septic system, and I was okay with it. So with that, if nobody else any other comments, we could put this to a vote.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for 624 Western Ave, NOI 0282854.
Charpentier seconds?
roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
Member Gullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI 0282854 at 624 Western Avenue.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Gradwall,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes,
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
Member Gullo.
Yes,
Okay, thank you all very much.
thank you. Next up, notice of intent, 0282855, 19 Essex Avenue, Eugene McDonough, previously continued to July 20th. Now we're obviously here today. Is that gentleman here?
Yes, Eugene, if you could just raise your hand, which with other, looks like you have two accounts. Okay, I'll recognize you now.
Eugene?
Should be able to speak.
Mr. McDonough, can you hear us? Mr. McDonough?
Sorry about that, Commission. Can you hear me?
Yep. You're
Okay.
up.
Yeah, this is a new process for me. I think I've done everything right. So I just put this forward to the commission to take a look at, and if there's any questions I can answer, please let me know.
Okay. So why don't you give us a brief description of what you're planning to do here?
Yes, I'm just I'm wanting to put a back deck on the back of my home here. There was an existing existing deck that I'm just trying to modify a little bit. So I don't know what the exactly what else is needed as far as the NOI application, but I'm not looking to do anything, you know, extravagant in the backyard. Just expand the deck just a little bit, which was a deck that was previously there by the previous owner.
Okay, so it's a deck repair. Or, I mean,
Basically.
deck repair in a proposed shed, correct?
Yes, sir.
So is the shed, were either of these elements already in place?
No, the shed was suggested that I put that on the proposal. That's not an immediate plan, but eventually I will need some storage space. So I thought that the surveyor should put that on the plan as well. But the primary focus is the back deck.
Okay,
So there was an existing deck there. The previous owner tried to rebuild that deck. I asked them to stop doing that prior to the sale of the home so that I could do that myself. And so what you have in front of you is the proposal, which isn't, you know, it's not much different than the existing that was there.
okay. All right, I'll open up for public comment first, see if anybody in the public has any comments on this. So if anybody wishes to speak for or against the project at 19 Essex Avenue, you may do so now by raising your hand with the raise your hand button. If you do not, or you could use the *9 on your phone or handheld device.
And I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Commissioner comments, roll call comments.
Member Cook?
Okay, first question on the deck is it's not being covered and there's spacing to it so that it's basically permeable. So I need to verify that because I can't really see it in the picture. And the second one is the shed. We're pretty far, looks like we're pretty far away from the resource area, but we need to know what the permeables, the size of the shed is, and we need some restoration for that. Only issues.
Okay,
So
so
Mr. McDonough, all the commissioners are gonna comment and then you can comment, okay?
yes, sir.
So take good notes.
Member Charpentier?
I echo Commissioner Cook.
Member Gradwall?
ditto on that. No further comments other than a little bit of planting.
Member Sergeant?
I agree with Commissioner Cook, but I'm wondering what the order of conditions were for the previously permitted, reconstructed deck. I didn't see them recorded in Salem deeds, and I'm wondering if they might give us some guidance.
Member Sherman,
No further comment.
Member Jackson,
I'm wondering if the old deck, A, still exists and B, was pervious. And when you're talking about impact in the buffer, you're really talking about 216 square feet for the deck. Staircase, another 60, and the shed, another 120. The stairs and deck presumably are pervious, so it would be just the shed that would be impervious. But I'm wondering if the old deck was pervious or impervious, because if it was impervious, then you're improving instead of stabilizing conditions.
It's my turn.
oh, sorry, Member Gullo.
My concerns are pretty much with my feeling is it was built illegally and it probably just someone put a deck up and it's decayed over the years and this gentleman wants to rebuild a deck, and I'm fine with that. But I do have a concern. It's unfortunate you bought a property so close to the marsh, but it is a really sensitive resource. And having a shed, to me, when I hear shed, I hear chemicals. So I have no problem with the deck, but I do have a problem with the shed. So unless you're willing to drop the shed for now. The other thing is shed in a flood zone too, technically, is another kind of dangerous combination in my eyes. So I'm fine with the deck, but I at this point in time, I don't think I could go forward with the shed at this time. You're welcome to come back before us separately to do that, maybe under an RDA. But right now, wrapped into this one, I would be concerned voting in both. Sorry, but that's how I feel. Okay, Mr. McDonough, you've heard us all talk. Do you have any responses?
Yeah, I can certainly forfeit the back shed.
Okay.
Okay, there's no problem with that. That was just suggested to do that because of the 3-year term of the NOI agreement. I understand that correctly. I will say that the back deck will not be covered. It will just be, just a smooth deck. Yeah. So if that makes sense.
Okay, could I just put in some additional comments? I read a reference somewhere that this was riverfront. So we need to be aware of that. Sir, was the old deck pervious or impervious?
I think I need a little clarification on pervious.
Did it let water through? Was there spacing between the decking boards?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Then it doesn't look like to me that he is expanding a little bit towards the riverfront, I think. But it's pervious.
Right.
So we don't have to be worried about that, right?
Yeah, I think we can let, in this particular case, it's such a small project. I think we can let alternative slide.
Yeah, but that would be something for the shed when he comes up later with that.
Correct.
Sir, what that means is that you have to, when you are building something in the buffer to the river, or the riverfront zone, you have to, and if you're putting something towards the river, you have to explain the alternatives that were available to you and why the one you have chosen is most appropriate for the resource.
When you do the shed.
Yeah, when you do the shed, you don't have to do that now. But down the road, when you want a shed, you have to explain why, in terms of the environment, putting the shed where you want to put it is the best idea, as opposed to other locations available on the lot.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I've got no problems with this.
Commissioners, any other comments before we wrap this one up or put it to a vote?
I just want to make the applicant is clear that that the shed would be removed from this project. And it's not just put the shed there, then explain. It would have to require another filing to add the shed on at a later date.
Correct.
I think that would be order of conditions.
And we require that they take the shed off of the existing one, off the existing plan, so that there's no confusion about it when it comes to a completion.
Good point. Mr. McDonough, you don't have to do it now, but if you do come back and do something with the shed, as you can see, we have great concern about it. But if you do come back, whether you come back or not, we need you to have your surveyor update the plan to take that off. It could be, you could white it out actually on the drawing, as long as it's not on that drawing that we approved.
Understood.
Anything
Okay.
else?
No, Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0282855 at 19 Essex Ave.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call vote. Member Cook,
Yes.
member Charpentier,
Yes,
member Gradwall,
Yes,
member Sergeant,
Yes,
member Sherman,
Yes,
member Jackson,
Yes,
and member Gullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson moves to approve NOI 0282855 at 19 Essex Avenue.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call vote. Member Cook,
Yes.
member Charpentier,
Yes,
member Gradwall,
yes, with a modification.
member Sergeant,
yes,
member Sherman,
yes,
member Jackson,
Yes,
and member Gullo.
Yes.
Motion
Thank
carries.
you, sir. You just have to remove that shed and you're all set.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now. Okay, on to new business. RDA 1732, 4 Bickford Way, Joanna Pippin, Thomas Velazquez, T&C Construction, Inc. What do we got?
Let me just look, if you are present in the attendees, if you could just raise your hand. Okay, I'm promoting you, Tom.
Tom, can you hear us? Tom? Tom, can you hear us? Hello, Tom. Tom?
Okay, hello.
Hello?
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Hello, I'm here too.
Apologize for butchering your name, so my apologies.
Sorry, that's okay.
You want to
Don't-
explain?
I am here as well. My name is Joanna Fippen.
Yeah, and I butchered
And-
yours too. So could you just explain the project to us briefly?
Well, I've got some rotting wood up on the deck and it's leaking through and it seemed rather dangerous. It's an old deck and I just felt that it was necessary to, they tried to replace some of the wood and then they found some more rot underneath. So things had to be taken away and redone.
Okay,
It's just replacing the old wood.
understood.
Nothing new.
Just existing decking.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to open up for public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 4 Bickford Way may do so now by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
And I'm not seeing any raised hands.
All right. Seeing none, hearing none, close the public comment period. Commissioner roll call comments, please.
Member Cook,
No comments.
member Charpentier,
no comments.
Member Gradwall,
No comment at all.
Member Sergeant,
No comment.
Member Sherman,
No comments.
Member Jackson.
My only question was, I assumed that the roof of the porch was meant to be impervious and that you're just improving it to a new
Yes.
cover. Okay,
Yes.
that's fine. Okay, then
Member-
we ready to move forward?
Member Gullah,
Yeah, my only comment would be is, for obvious reasons, if you could just manage your trash and debris when you're doing the work, you're obviously right on the water, so that would be appreciated.
Yeah, yes.
That's it? Okay,
Okay.
Joe.
Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for RDA 1732 at 4 Bickford Way.
Charpentier seconds?
roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes,
and Member Gullah.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson moves for a negative determination for RDA 1732 at 4 Bickford Way.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier, Member Charpentier,
Loser?
No, I'm here.
there she is.
Just say
I said
yes.
yes. I
Okay.
said yes.
Member Gradwall,
yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
Member Gullah.
Yes.
Okay.
You're all set. Good luck.
Okay,
Oh, thank you so much.
thank you.
Next up, RDA 1733 18 Salt Marsh Lane, James and Elizabeth Pocock and Swanky Property Services Management LLC. Representing, I should say. Can you hear me, Jim?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And
I'm
I'm trying to
just-
promote
I'm
Bill
here.
as well.
All right. Wait for Bill to get here.
Jim, it sounds like you might have two devices on around you. You're echoing a little bit. Can you check on that?
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Bill Zwemke, representing Jim Pocock, I think is on. I already got beaten to the punch there. Before the commission, fairly straightforward project. One clarification I'll make before we get into the narrative on it was previously identified or misidentified as being part of the Forest River ACEC. It's actually now, I guess, been renamed. So I just want to clarify, this actually abuts the Farm Creek resource, which is to the left of the image that you're seeing right now where that stone wall is. So I think Greg mentioned it's probably just been renamed by the state as the Great Marsh ACEC. Anyway, I just wanted to make that clear at the beginning, so there was no confusion when reading the documentation. So basically, this is an addition to an existing home. It's been there since the original subdivision. It's to place a approximately 30 by 24 two-car garage at the end of the house. I have a photograph of the area and I have additional photographs if you'd like to see it. Was surveyed by Hayes, who actually did the original subdivision out there, which provided a topo and dimensions of the area and distances from the resource, that type of thing. So we have submitted an engineering plan to the city engineer, who determined that we would have no or reduced runoff impact to the storm drain system, because we're actually building this where an existing blacktop driveway is. We're simply cutting into the driveway, taking that out and putting a garage in there. The area is surrounded by lawn and domestic plantings, well kept, as you'll see in a photograph. And I guess that's my preamble to it. Right to the questions.
Okay, I'll open up for public comment. Does anybody in the public wish to speak towards the project at 18 Salt Marsh Lane? You may do so now by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
And I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. We'll go to commissioner comments.
Member Cook.
Yeah, from what I can see on the drawing, I mean, all the work is being done outside the resource area. I really have no problem with it at all.
Member Charpentier.
No comments.
Member Gradwall.
No comment.
Member Sergeant.
I just want to clarify, there won't be any increase in impervious surface from this project within the upland edge of the ACEC.
Correct, and it is all downhill side from the ACEC.
Member Sherman.
No comment.
Member Jackson.
No comment.
And Member Gullah.
I guess it's sloping away, so I don't see any erosion controls on the plan that was submitted. Am I missing it, or is it all sloping away from the resource?
Way, and I actually have a very clear photographic, and you can actually see the elevation from the backyard toward the front, that it is definitely sloping away from the resource. I personally have another photograph, but basically to the left, that's at an elevation about 2 feet higher than the driveway, maybe a little bit more. So it is all running toward the front of the property. Currently, there are no erosion issues on the property. Everything is kept pretty much on the property. The driveway curves as it approaches the street, has well-vegetated areas and landscaped areas that are catching all the water that's coming off the property right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, unless anyone has any other comments, we can move to close the hearing.
Yes, I'm sorry. Commissioner Jackson moves to close the public hearing for RDA 173 18 Marshall.
Carpentier seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Gradwall.
Yes.
Member Sergeant.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
Member Gullah.
Yeah,
Commissioner Jackson moves for a negative determination for RDA 1733 at 18 Salt Marsh Lane.
Carpentier seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Gradwall.
Yes.
Member Sergeant.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
Member Gullah.
yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next up, just a little public service announcement. And when we're done these next two RDAs, we'll take a 5-minute recess. So next up is RDA 1734 43 Haskell Street, Melissa McBride, Brian Colleran, Ecological Land Management LLC.
Commissioner Jackson is recusing.
Noted. Can you hear us, Brian? Hello?
What's the audio?
You hear us?
I can hear you. Oh my.
Okay, good. So can you give us a brief description of the project?
Yeah, basically there is a lot of knotweed. The homeowner bought the house a couple of months ago. They've got a lot of knotweed, and I'm offering to help them get rid of. I don't want to say kill. I don't want to say remove. Right? It's too final. You guys know knotweed. Finality isn't really something you can do. It's a little bit complex in the sense that I think technically it's on a mapped wetland, but in the field, the wetland is really far away. There's no street view on Google. Otherwise I would have grabbed some of that. But yeah, the job is basically injecting herbicide into the hollow stems. So it is herbicide, yes, but there's no spraying or, you know, accidental.
So you're doing cut and dab?
No, well, yes, but it's not a cut and paint job because the cut and paint doesn't work as well with knotweed. It's a cut it high. Like right now, the homeowner is actually cutting it down to about 2 feet at this point. And then she'll do that, I gotta check the calendar, maybe twice more. And then the stuff that was never cut, that's still solid, that's where the injection goes into so you weaken the plant over the course of the summer and hope for a better percentage kill in the autumn injection.
Okay, I'll open up for public comment. Does anybody in the public wish to speak for or against the project at 43 Haskell Street? If so, you may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
I am not seeing any raised hands.
Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Next up would be commissioner comment.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comment?
Member Gradwall,
No comment.
Member Sargent,
Yes, as you said, you know, this shows us, this is a wetland, according to the city GIS. It seems to extend onto the property. And so if it's in a buffer, it's a lot different than if it's in a wetland. And I'm wondering if the wetland has been officially flagged and then verified before the project goes forward. Otherwise, I think it should be an NOI. And I'm wondering if the adjacent properties that you mentioned should be included in the filing. And what precautions will there be to make sure that the owner doesn't cut down any native plant species? And in what manner is the Japanese knotweed going to be disposed? And what ultimately is going to take its place? Is it going to be a manicured lawn? Thank you.
Member Sherman.
So we'll go through all the commissioner comments and then you can respond.
Okay.
Member
No
Sherman.
comment. No
Sorry.
comment.
Okay. And Member Gullah.
No comments, other than what was already suggested. So, Mr. Colleran, you can respond now. I think we just have some concerns about where this is going, big picture.
Yeah. If you can scroll down a little bit to the two photos on
These?
a little more, at least on, yeah, that top photo of the pair of them. So,
This one here?
the actual photos of the site, not, sorry, the map.
Okay, I started there. I thought. Sorry.
That's all right. So you can see the graveyard across the street on the other side of Rocky Pasture through the trees there. And that driveway you see in the image, that's mapped wetland. And Rocky Pasture Road, part of it is mapped wetland. The wetland itself, in that image, kind of where what might be a birch in the foreground sort of meets a smaller conifer in the background, that darker edge in the back is where the wetland is. So the actual wetland on site never flagged it. It's two properties over. Yeah, and I think there was a mistake somewhere in the mapping where some old, because obviously if Rocky Pasture Road is mapped as wetland and there's a road there and it's been there for a while, something deeper than what I can address is going on in terms of where the wetland is or isn't. In terms of the knotweed management, right now the homeowner, what she cuts down, she's putting into basically garbage bins and she's leaving them. The plan is to basically let them die for several months until the winter time, and then have a conversation about either landfilling them or burning them and having that conversation about that permit, or just composting them on site, because by then they'll be soup. The standing canes, after they're injected, we're not going to touch. We're just going to let them decompose in place. I'm very mindful of all the ways knotweed can get around. And so we are taking a long view of it. The longer term question of what is going in, right now, the homeowner doesn't have a plan that I'm aware of. She's focused on the house on the other side of the property, and is just sort of addressing the problem for now. Presumably, there's going to be a lot of buckthorn, a lot of honeysuckle, a lot of other invasives to come into the space, but those are simpler to deal with. The knotweed's a little more complex. And the knotweed you can't really plant into anyway. It's an allelopathic plant, and so there's a good chance of it killing whatever you put into the ground now. So you've got to give the soil some time to process the chemistry. All of them.
So I think the only one who had concerns was you, David. Did he capture everything, or do you have anything else you're concerned?
I understand what he's saying, and I've had experience where the city's wetland maps are off. But I'm concerned about what verification do we have that this isn't going to be taking place in a wetland.
You can answer that.
Don't have a good answer. It just appears like a filled wetland. Everything closer to the wetland, the visual, the observable, the clear wetland, everything closer is highly developed and filled in. That's all I've got, is that everything closer than where I am. I'm on the farthest edge of either the buffer to what's there or the mapped wetland. And then everything between me and the wetland I can observe is filled. There's nothing there. So my presumption, the site where we are has some road debris on it. The knotweed is actually growing out of road debris, sand and silt and dirt and things was pushed in over the years. I didn't pick up on anything. There may well be wetland soils there. It's entirely possible. I didn't look, but there's no wetland vegetation. There's nothing that triggered any kind of, no Jedi, wetland tricks going off in my brain.
Okay. Maybe something, since everything we're kind of looking at here might be off, what may satisfy Dave and the rest of the commission would be is if we continue this to the next meeting and you provide just a better diagram or drawing of where everything is, even if it's just a sketch, we don't know what's right or what's wrong here and where we're even talking, if it's even close. So in this way, we can also document it in case things start to move out, so to speak, or shift over time. At least we have some sort of diagram in place to show us what is.
Well, and the other thing too is that I don't know how well it would come across in pictures. To me, this would be a really good site visit, knowing that you guys obviously don't have the agent and we don't want to throw them in the deep end right away. That's deep enough already. But this might be easier to do with somebody coming out and doing a walk. But,
all right, well, I'll be happy to do that. We'll try and set something up. I obviously have your contact through Greg. So I will try and connect, and I will connect with anyone else who wants to text me from the group, but I'll make it a point to get out there with you.
Yeah, it's clear, visually, but it's not clear in any other way, honestly.
Okay. So we're going to continue this for 2 weeks. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay. So
Charpentier moved to continue RDA 1734 43 Haskell Street to the commission meeting of August 3rd.
And Gradwell seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
yes, with the caveat, Greg, if you don't mind giving the gentleman my email so we communicate.
Yes, I'll communicate amongst the three of us and any other commission members that want to join. We'll try to set a time next week.
Yeah, and Dave, if for some reason you can't get out, just send me an email or a letter telling me what you want me to look at.
I'd like to be there.
Okay, great. All right, so
Thank
thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Good night.
So we gotta move.
Commissioner Jackson is rejoined.
Excellent. So we're up to RDA 1735105 Main Street. Melissa.
So I received correspondence from the applicant. They have made a request to withdraw without prejudice. They will be filing a notice of intent eventually.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Jackson moves to accept a withdrawal without prejudice for RDA 1735 at 105 East Main Street.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes,
and Member Gullif.
Yes. Okay. If everyone wants to keep going, I'm willing to go, but I was gonna hope for a 5-minute recess.
How about a 5-minute recess?
Sounds
Sounds
good.
Okay.
Gradwell's there.
Okay, your video's off. I don't know if you care, but. All right, who's missing? Gravel's here. I think we're all here, right? Oh, Bill Cook's still missing.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. I think we're good then. Greg, do you want to come play with us or what?
I am here.
There you go. We're all here, I think. Okay. Next up. Where are we? Notice of intent 28-2856, 261 East Main Street, David Campbell and John Dick representing.
So I'm trying to promote David Campbell.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Doesn't seem to want to bring him in. I also don't see John Dick listed in the attendees. If there's anyone representing the project, if you could just use the raise hand button.
Didn't you say that John Dick had another meeting to attend at 7 o'clock?
Yeah, he did. I'm seeing a attendee named David Campbell, and for some reason it won't allow me to bring him in.
Well, why don't we do this? On the off chance he can hear us, but he can't, I would suggest that he reset whatever device he's on. And we'll
David, I just gave you permission to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear us, Mr. Campbell? You're muted. There you go. Can you hear us? You should be able to hear us now. Mr. Campbell? Mr. Campbell, you out there?
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
Barely. It sounds like you have multiple devices on. You need to turn one of them off. Hello?
There is one phone number, so if you press *9, you should be able to request to speak. There we go.
Mr. Campbell, you there? Hello, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah. Can you
Okay.
hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I received an email from John Dick saying he had another meeting and he would be back after 8 o'clock. So I'm wondering if we could just push this off till after 8.
Well, we'll probably be here, so why not? So we'll table you until after 8.
Okay, Dynamite. Thank you,
And
guys.
David, if you just want to raise your hand, or actually, we'll probably see John enter in the attendee and we'll know when to circle back.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
My Wi-Fi where I'm at's not very good, so you were coming in and out, but
Okay,
let's do it after 8. Thanks.
great.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, next up, notice of intent, no DEP number that I know. Did these DEP number drop?
I checked right before the meeting and I didn't see any new numbers for the next two items.
Okay, so next up would be notice of intent 28, no DP number, 26 Vine Street, John and Judith Scary, John Judd of Gateway Consultants, Inc., representing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing John and Judith Scary for this proposed elevated boardwalk and seasonal float and ramp at 26 Vine Street. Greg, I'm not sure if you want to put that plan up.
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now.
So this is an existing house that has an existing at-grade paver walkway that is in the marsh that is proposed to be removed. You can see the section view A, and at the top A in plan view, you can sort of see where that existing paver walk that's in the actual marsh is going to be removed, proposed to be removed. And the proposal is to construct a 60-foot elevated boardwalk that would be raised in accordance with CZM and DMF standards for 1.5 to 1 height above the Spartina and the marsh, as we typically do with these applications, and to promote or to allow sunlight to make its way underneath the proposed elevated boardwalk. And this would obviously eliminate the pedestrian constant back and forth of pedestrians going toward the marsh and the mud flat for their boat that's currently anchored in the mud at this time. So in accordance with DMF standards, we've proposed a 3-foot wide, 60-foot long with a 50-foot gangway that would be seasonally removed. The proposed 20 by 10 float would be supported by helical anchors as recommended by DMF. And it's really the extent of the proposed project. The 100 square foot pavers would be removed and replaced with Spartina grass, as is common throughout this marsh area. We do have a letter that was received yesterday from DMF. They did have some recommendations. It appears that we don't have a file number yet from DEP wetlands, but we can answer any questions that you might have at this time. I believe the Scarys are on the call as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Judd. Okay, so first off, we open it up for public comment typically. So this is the period where people are welcome to speak for or against the project at 26 Vine Street. You may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
And I am not seeing any raised hands.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Can we go to commissioner comment? Roll call comments, please.
Member Cook.
Yeah, I was just looking in the file. We don't seem to have anything from Harbor Master or Shellfish in there.
I have not received anything. I'm not sure if it was referred.
That would be the only thing, because I believe that is a Shellfish bed that it's going over. So we definitely need something from Shellfish and Harbor Master. Other than that, no problems.
Well, we are in riverfront. Do we need to deal with riverfront issues here?
No.
Are you looking for a response from me, Mr. Chairman?
I'm looking for a response from somebody. I mean, I'm a man on an island right now. Nobody wants to talk to me. Yeah, so don't we need some sort of alternatives analysis here or what? Are we not?
Yeah, well, we have a small amount of the proposal that is above the mean high water. And in our description and construction sequence, we indicate The fact that the 100 square foot paver walkway as an alternative would be removed. The elevated boardwalk would be a long-term reduction of foot traffic directly across the wetland. And the elevated boardwalk will allow for a light infiltration to the wetland plants below, which currently does not exist now. So you could consider, I suppose, a redevelopment, but we did have that in for an alternative, to keep that existing paver walkway in place or to construct an elevated boardwalk in accordance with DEP recommendations.
Everybody else is on board with that. I'm fine with it. Okay, so why don't we move over onto commissioner comments? Roll call comments.
Member
Right.
Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Gradwall,
No comment.
Member Sergeant,
Yes, would be helpful to have pictures of the existing pavers in the marsh if their removal is to be considered as mitigation. The applicant would also need a Chapter 91 permit as some of the pilings are below mean high water. And how would the pilings be installed? If it's by barge, it's noted there's very little water at this location at mean high water, and the barge must not ground out on or create turbidity to the shellfish flat. If the pilings are to be installed by shore, then it should be done during the salt marsh non-growing season and protective mats placed upon the salt marsh. The walkway would need sufficient height for the salt marsh to prevent shading. I would want at least a 1.5 to 1 height to width ratio, along with it at least 5/8 inch spaces between the boards to allow for adequate light penetration. And all material must be non-toxic to the marine environment, and the float must not be stored on the marsh. And there would also need to be harbor master and shellfish comments. Thank you.
Member Sherman,
Nothing further than to concur with both Member Cook and Member Sergeant.
Member Jackson,
I agree with the above comments. In addition, I read the DEP comments, and under the minimizing impacts to shellfish resources, I would consider the first 3 comments absolutely mandatory. And the last 2 under that category are recommendations, and all of them mandatory under minimizing impacts to the salt marsh. And I agree, harbor master and shellfish comments.
and Member Gullo.
I concur with my co-chair's final comments there. So
So
with that,
I'm just noting that correspondence from the Division of Marine Fisheries came in on the 19th. And it was also copied to the Shellfish Constable and the Harbor Master. So I'll be sure to get their comment prior to the next meeting.
yeah, just so you know, I know Adrian kind of came up with a system because they will not respond unless you ask them to look at it.
Okay.
So, they get buried with these, and I get it. They get
Yeah.
buried with these all the time. So if you don't ask, they're not going to give it to us. So. Okay, Commissioners, anything else to add, or Mr. Judd, anything you want to respond to before we continue this?
No, I just wanted to point out that we did email the applications to the Shellfish Constable and the Harbor Master on the 5th of July when we submitted the application. And just to agree with you, Mr. Chairman, I can't, it would have to come from Greg asking for those comments, but we'll certainly provide any other information. We'll provide some pictures as requested by Mr. Sargent of the existing pavers. And we understand that a Chapter 91 permit is needed for those pilings below mean high water. And we did show 18-inch wooden legs below the float. We can raise that to 2.5 feet as requested by DMF. And that is it. And we can note that 5/8 inch spacing as well, which we already do have it on the plan. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? With that, why don't we move to continue to August 3rd? Is that what you want, Mr. Judd?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 028 unassigned DEP number at 26 Vine Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of August 3rd.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes?
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Goa.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Have a great night. Thank you.
See you in a couple weeks. Okay, we're down to notice of intent 28 no DP number 10 Point Road, Salvatore and Nancy Vigorito, John Judd Gateway Consultants, Inc. representing. They've requested a continuation to August 3rd.
Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 028 unassigned DEP number at 10 Point Road to the Conservation Commission meeting of August 3rd.
Charpentier seconds?
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes?
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Goa.
Recusing.
Okay.
Next up. Where are we here? Consultants Inc. request, oh, there we are, one down. Notice of intent, no DP number 119 Essex Avenue, Daniel Fitzgerald, Kevin McCow,
McHugh, I think.
You?
Lindbrook Consulting. Go ahead.
And I'm going to promote Kevin McHugh.
McHugh. Ugh.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yep.
Hi, thank you. Hi, for the record, I'm Kevin McHugh with Lindbrook Consulting. And I'm here on behalf of representing Daniel Fitzgerald, who's the homeowner of 119 Essex Avenue. Just to give you some background on this project, Mr. Fitzgerald is the homeowner of the single-family home at 119 Essex Avenue, and he is proposing to construct an addition to that home. The addition would be approximately 430 square feet. The existing home, I think I wrote in the notice of intent that the existing home is 1,400 or so square feet. It's actually less than that. That's the entire living space. The home is about 846 square feet. So he's looking to construct that addition to the right side of the home, as shown on the plan here that's displayed. The property itself, it slopes slightly downhill from Essex Avenue to the back of the property. So to construct this addition, there'll be some excavating slightly into that embankment to construct the basement. So therefore, the back of the home and the basement itself would essentially be at ground level at the back. And that's important because, as noted in the notice of intent, this property is within a FEMA AE flood zone of elevation 13. So that having that elevation, that basement elevation, essentially at ground level, will provide area for, should we see that 100-year storm, to allow water to flow into that basement. So we wouldn't be losing any flood storage area with the construction of this addition. Also noted on the plan, both the home and the addition is within the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh, which is at the back of the property on the northern side. Mr. Fitzgerald, I'm sorry, I believe Mr. Fitzgerald's attorney, is he the attorney or architect? My understanding is that one of them had met with the building commissioner and reviewed the architectural plans. And my understanding is that the building commissioner didn't have any issues with the way the addition is proposed to be constructed with the basement that way, and with it being in the flood zone. I did also meet with the deputy commissioner, and the deputy commissioner did just suggest a couple of things. He didn't have a chance to review the plans, but he did suggest a couple of things with this addition being in the floodplain. One major one was that the basement of this addition would be uninhabitable space to again allow for the basement to flood if we do have flooding conditions. And that is the case. This basement is going to be uninhabitable. It's not going to be heated. It's primarily just going to be used for storage. And the only other comment from the deputy commissioner was that the floor joists the bottom elevation of the floor joist addition, that they be a suitable elevation above the flood elevation, which is 13. And this addition is being designed so the elevations of the floors in the basement match the home. So there would be sufficient separation between that flood elevation of 13 and the elevation of the floor joist for the first floor. Along with the addition, the homeowner is also proposing to remove the existing shed, which is shown on the plans, which is approximately 200 square feet, and also to remove the asphalt surface that's on that existing driveway, which is on the left side of the home, which is a little under 1,300 square feet. They remove the asphalt and put in porous pavers. So in the end, even with the addition of, or the inclusion of the addition to the home, we'd be looking at a net removal of a little over 1,000 square feet of impervious surface in the property. So it'd be a net gain in impervious surfaces. I'm sorry, impervious surface throughout the property. I believe that's essentially the high points. So glad to take any questions.
First off, I'll open up for public comment. Anyone in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 119 Essex Avenue may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
And I am not seeing any raised hands.
Seeing none, hearing none, a close public comment period. Commissioner roll call comments are next.
Member Cook?
No, I was just looking to see with the addition, with any of the downspouts and that, is there any plans for diverting or holding any of the runoff, since it is going to be flowing down to the wetland area? But that's the only question I have.
Member Charpentier?
No questions.
Member Gradwell?
No comment.
Member Sargent?
I note that there's more impervious surface going to be removed than is going to be added, and that's always a good thing.
Member Sherman?
While I agree that removing of impervious surface is a good thing, I am concerned about the kind of the knowledge already that this property is going to flood and that water is going to go in the basement. And even if it is deemed inhabitable, I'm concerned about things that would be stored in that basement when that flooding does occur that could end up in the salt marsh.
Member Jackson?
No additional comments. I do share some of Mr. Sherman's concerns, particularly regarding chemicals.
And Member Gullo?
I concur with Mr. Sherman as well. So with that, sir, you got a few comments you want to respond to?
Sure. I'm not sure about the comment about the downspouts. I believe the plan is just to add downspouts and have those drain to the ground and allow that to infiltrate. So I think that's the plan as of right now.
Okay, that's a good answer.
And for storage, I believe Mr. Fitzgerald's plan is to store, basic, home materials in the basement. I'm not sure what would be in there. I don't believe the plan is there'll be anything that would be hazardous materials that will be stored in the basement. I don't know if we could put a stipulation in the order of conditions that, to restrict storage of materials in the basement, but, I think it's just standard household items are going to be stored in the basement.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is a concern of ours because it's not because anybody's doing anything on purpose, but
Sure.
Especially with the flood openings, and maybe there's an opportunity here to make smaller flood openings and more of them to allow for water to get out, but not large things like paint cans. This is what we're concerned about is if you get a flow arrangement, you're gonna have things just washing out into the resource when the problem occurs. So I would just be creative with it. Do we have a DEP number on this yet? We do not. So we're gonna have to continue anyways. So I would spend a little time thinking on that before we meet again. And hopefully you can satisfy our concern.
Sure.
Would you like to continue to August 3rd, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to continue NOI 028 unassigned DEP number at 119 Essex Avenue to the Conservation Commission meeting of August 3rd.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. All right, sir. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
All right, so no sign of Mr. Dick yet, or? We got other things to do,
Not yet.
so, yeah, if you don't
Not
see him, why don't we just go on to extensions?
Yep.
So we'll move on to extension 0281897 Niles Pond Causeway. Karen, I don't want to ruin your name, so I'm not even going to try. Association of Eastern Point Residents. Are you there?
Yes, she is. Got a hand raised.
Yep.
Can you hear us, Karen?
She's coming in now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, so this is just, the courtesy every
I'm
3
sorry,
years.
name and address for the record. I didn't want to butcher your name when I was trying
Okay.
to.
Oh, sorry, it's Karen Gorsiga. Much easier pronounced than it's spelled. So this is just, the last time we came before the commission, this permit was essentially approved to be renewed in perpetuity, but every 3 years we had to come before the board to just as a courtesy to remind everybody what the activities under the permit would be occurring, which was is repairs to the causeway, to trim the vegetated pathways that lead onto the beach, and to trim the vegetation that encroaches on the roadways. So it's really just a renewal of the permit as is.
Okay. These are consent agendas, are they not, Greg? Do I have to open these all to public comment or no?
I don't believe the extension requires that.
Okay.
And I did have a question.
Yeah.
And the question is, so our the contractor who does the repairs to the causeway, what he essentially does after we've had a really, really bad storm, he goes in there with his backhoe and he scoops up the big rocks or whatever that have washed into the pond. Over the past few years, over the past 10 years, we've had a couple of really big boulders wash into the pond that are so far in that we can't really get at them to retrieve them with the backhoe. So we were wondering if it's okay if we brought a couple of replacement boulders in. And we just wanted to run that by you. We didn't see any language in the permit that we could do that or not do that. And just kind of.
The fact that you were allowed by the commission to get a backhoe in there is kind of a big give for us. So I would be willing to bet, but I'm willing to listen to other commissioners to comment on it, that I don't think any more addition or subtraction in there is a good thing, unless it's like an emergency situation.
Right.
Why don't we let fellow commissioners comment on that? So if you want to do roll call comments, Greg, please.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Gradwall,
To replace the boulders, there has to be a safety concern. No comment.
Member Sergeant,
I agree with Chair Gullo.
Member Sherman,
I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe that we grant extensions in perpetuity. I did have concerns when this extension was granted back when I was on the conservation previously, and those concerns remain. That's all.
Member Jackson.
I would be willing to grant a 3-year extension. I do wonder what function the boulders served. Was there a safety issue or what? That's all.
Member Gullo.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Sherman. I wasn't comfortable, I don't believe with this either, but, so I guess what we're saying, Karen, other than explaining to us why, what are the boulders that you want to add going to do? Stabilize the bank, protect a life safety issue? What's the issue?
So essentially, it is a safety issue because there are so many people that walk over the causeway every single day. So there are some really big gaps. So when we retrieve the material, the machinery it never leaves the causeway. It's either on the asphalt or on top of the causeway. So when we retrieve the material, a lot of it, it's sand, small rocks, and some larger rocks. But there are, I think, 3 larger boulders that have been washed too far into the pond. So essentially what happens is we scoop up the smaller material, fill in the gaps, and it just washes out again. And if we could replace the 3 spots that have lost the larger boulders, that would just be a lot safer and probably require less frequent repair.
Okay, I think the goal, I think what'll have to happen is this is basically a request, a simple request for an extension, a continued extension. I think we leave it at that.
Okay.
The other things you probably should file separately for, it doesn't have to be a complex filing, but it's difficult, if not impossible, for us to get our hands around what's really going on here. And we're afraid to, not like anybody's going to do anything on purpose, but we may tip the scale the wrong way that causes something bad to happen. So we're just going to work on the extension right now. And if you really see it as an issue, I would do a separate filing.
Okay, yeah, and I don't see it as an issue, and I'm not an engineer. So what we can do is we will talk to the contractor, and if he really feels strongly, then we'll have an engineer come in and make some suggestions and point us in the right direction, the right professional direction, and then we could come before you with a separate NOI.
Thank you very much. Okay, then with that, anyone else have any other questions? Shall we move to approve the extension?
Commissioner Jackson moved for 3 years, right?
Yep.
Commissioner Jackson moves to approve EXT 0281897 Niles Pond Causeway for a period of 3 years.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Gradwall.
Yes.
Member Sergeant.
Does I see this as a management plan? Yes.
Member Sherman.
No.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
And Member Gullo.
Yes. Next up, thank you, you're all set.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time, commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, where are we? I can barely read this in the dark. Notice of intent 2576 Birchfield Pond treatment update. Doesn't have a name associated with it. Are you updating us, Greg?
No, I think this was just part of the order conditions required that the commission be notified whenever there was going to be any activity that was regulated under the order conditions. So it's their reporting to the commission of the upcoming activity.
All right, so there's nothing new there then?
No, nothing new, just for your notification of the that the work is going to be ongoing and upcoming.
Okay. Next up would be emergency certification 22-02 80 Commercial Street, Vito Gigoloni representing, I guess.
So we received an email So it's kind of a complicated project if you're familiar with 80 Commercial Street that had a partial collapse over the winter months. And he's in the process of trying to align all the permitting, has concerns about some continued deterioration of the structure, but is going to try to pull things together into a notice of intent for September. Initially, he was going to propose to do some additional work in the coming weeks, but he has decided to just go forward with the full engineering design and submission of an NOI in probably September. So he's requested to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay. And Joe, you want to move that?
Sure. Yes, Commissioner Jackson moves to accept a withdrawal without prejudice for EC 2202 at 80 Commercial Street.
Carpenter seconds?
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so moving right ahead. unless you-
Rob, before you move on to the next section, under commission business, we probably all received the email about the civil suit. Just an update on that. City solicitor got it, handling it.
Yeah, usually what happens is it goes through back to the city solicitor. I mean, there's nothing really for you to do now until I mean, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but the city solicitor will get back to us. And usually what happens is there's a sit down with the commission and the applicant and a back and forth about how do we make this work or not work. So am I correct, Greg? Is that what we're?
Yeah, I haven't heard of any timeline associated with it yet, but I'll consult with Suzanne Egan and get back to you for the next meeting if there's any steps to be taken.
It could be a long time, Bill, just so you know.
Okay.
Okay, so we get a bunch of certificates of compliance. Do we want to do these can we do these in one whack, or do we gotta break them out individually?
I have an issue with 95 Wheeler.
All right, well then why don't we go through these one at a time then? That's just the best way to go, I guess.
If you want to, it does look like John Dick is on, if you want to go back to public hearings before you move on.
Sure.
Okay, I'll bring him in.
John, can you hear us? John? I see you. John? Johnny there?
Let me try bringing on Mr. Campbell again.
David Campbell here. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, David. We have you on, and we've tried to bring John in, and we can't seem to connect with him. Oh, there he is.
You're muted, John. Unmute yourself. Keep trying. Can you hear us? Any luck, John?
Yeah, he's unmuted, so I'm not sure. Looks like there might be a problem with his mic.
Yeah, it looks like his screen's frozen. Nope.
I see him moving. He's just not getting.
Yeah, yeah, it started moving again. But he's got no audio.
We can't, what I would suggest again is Mr. Campbell still on?
He is.
Mr. Campbell, can you hear me? He's off too. Let's just, I don't know what to do. I'm not gonna sit here all night.
John, you could also dial in if you'd like.
Oh, you might be now.
It might give you some feedback, but if your mic's not working now, it might not be a problem.
Right.
Hi, David Campbell here. If you could just wait a couple of minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Let's go back and do the certificates of compliance and come back in 7 minutes.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay.
Okay, so we get the certificates of compliance. Let's do them one at a time, just to be clear, because we got a couple, someone might have issues with. So we have RCOC 28-1924, 4 Raleigh Shore Road, S. Kimberly Spanner. Are these all good to go, Greg, or?
So I made a site visit to this one. I did not understand initially that this was a very old filing. So there's a couple of photographs in the folder. This project, I think, is many years back, probably at least 5 to 10 years. The site's completely stable. The addition was completed in compliance with the plans. There are no issues.
Excellent, thank you.
Commissioner Jackson moves to approve RCOC 0281924 at 40 Rowley Shore.
Carpenter seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Abstain.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. Next up. RCOC 20-2780-476 Washington Street.
I also provided some photographs in the site visit. This was a dock and float system. So I don't know if you want me to put them up.
No, if you're good with them, Greg, we trust you. I mean, you did it for many years. If you're good with it, we're good with it.
Yep.
Commissioner Jackson moves to approve RCOC 0282780 at 476 Washington Street.
Carpenter seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
Member Gullo.
Yes.
Okay.
Next up, RCOC 20-2797, 49 Norwood Heights, Irvin Rogers, Ipswich Bay Homestead LLC. Way to go, Dave.
I did perform a site visit there. You also received an as-built plan. I think David Smith from GZA, I think, is also on the call. I'll ask him if he'd like to speak. Yep, he's raising his hand. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Greg. Hi, Commission members. No, I really don't have anything to say other than this project went pretty straightforward. It was well done. I'm glad you got to visit the site, Greg. I saw it back in April. They did a great job. I think good.
Okay, thank you, David. You want to move this in, Joe?
Yep. Commissioner Jackson, I'm sorry about that. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve RCOC 0282797 at 49 Norwood Heights.
Carpenter seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. Next up, RCOC 20-2778, 542 Washington Street, Timothy Miller. How are we with that with this one, Greg?
I'm trying to remember the project. Let me just, I believe I put some photographs in the file. Let me take a look.
Sure.
Yep, this is another dock and float system. Pretty simple, pinned to a granite ledge with a aluminum gangway down to a small float. It looks like it was installed according to the plan design. Pretty simple project.
Okay. Want to move this in, Joe?
Certainly. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve RCOC 0282778 at 542 Washington Street.
Carpenter seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. Next up is RCOC 20-2550, 95 Willow Street, Robert and Diane Murphy.
Is John Dick got his hand up? He's on the phone. Looks like he's trying to get through.
Let's just get this, we're so close.
Yeah, we'll circle back as soon as we're done with our COCs. And I think Dave mentioned that Member Sergeant had a comment.
Yeah, my understanding is that that the department has asked for as-built repeatedly from this applicant, and they've not been forthcoming.
All right, so why don't we'll table that one to the next meeting, Greg, until you can ask them about that.
Okay.
So that's 95 Willow Street, you'll do that with? So next up would be RCOC 20-2482, 11 Biskie Head Point, Martin and Mary Catherine Hurdle.
This was also a deck addition. You'd barely know it. The site is very well stabilized. No expansion of the footprint that other than what was proposed. So it's completely stable and looks like it is complete.
Okay. And Joe?
Okay. Commissioner Jackson moves to approve RCOC 02828, excuse me, 2482 at 11 Biskie Head Point.
Carpenter seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes. and
Member Gullo.
Yes. All right, so now we're moving back to notice of intent 28-2856. Is that the one? 261 East Main Street?
Yes.
Dave Campbell and John Dick representing. Looks like John's still talking.
Let's see, I will now promote his phone number.
There he is. Can you hear us, John? I heard him laugh.
I think that was Dave.
No.
How's that?
Hey, there we go.
Wow. I love this technology. This seems to me like a pretty simple filing. I have a 204-foot existing float array and a silted up basin, Smith Cove. The situation here is that my client wants to add 2 floats to the end of the system. And to stabilize this very long system of floats with 2 pilings. The intent is to keep his boat off the bottom of the cove. I've got a Chapter 91 plan ready to go. And essentially, this is no longer than the 2 adjacent floats. They're all licensed. And About the only regulatory consideration is near the end of my letter. There's our float in the foreground.
Mhm.
And that letter basically addresses eelgrass, woodland grass, and water circulation, and none of these are altered or affected by this activity. There's no mapped grass out there. So that's my presentation, unless you've got some questions.
So, yeah, well, that's great. The only thing we tend to want to know here is, did you ever get, if you could get a letter from we're worried about navigation here, even though it isn't our purview, we don't want to see things going back and forth as far as movement. But usually your request for floats or float additions is for the harbor master to chime in. And in this particular case, where we're in the harbor, I don't think shellfish is really required, but I'll listen to my co-commissioners on that. That would be the only thing I have. Anything else? Why don't you do roll call comments from commissioners, Greg?
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Gradwall,
Can't do it without the Shellfish Commissioner and the Harbor Master.
Member Sergeant.
Yeah, I would want the barge to be conditioned that it wouldn't ground out during installation of the pilings, and that the harbor master would be contacted.
Member Sherman,
No comments.
Member Jackson,
No comments.
and Member Gullo.
My earlier comment that shellfish possible. I mean, I'm not overly concerned about shellfish, but it wouldn't hurt to ping him. But more importantly, harbor master needs to chime in, make sure we haven't created something. So that's it, John. I don't know if you have anything else you want to ask from us, but so we're gonna have to continue your project for 2 weeks. If you can get that information, we should be pretty good to go. Not a lot of pushback here.
I thank you. I understand completely. These were routed to the harbor master and the shellfish commissioner, so now I'll just have to light a fire under them.
That's it, exactly. They don't respond unless really, they're not really, it's not their fault. I don't want to put it out that way.
No.
But unless someone actively says it's there, they've got plenty of other fish to fry. That's all.
Not directing any blame.
And I think the agent has to request their input on these.
I will do that for these two applications.
Thank you, Greg.
This evening.
Okay.
Yep.
Commissioner
Thank you,
Jackson,
Greg, and I'll warm up to transmittal.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Commissioner Jackson
Good night.
moves to continue NOI 0282856 at 261 East Main Street to the Conservation Commission meeting of August 3rd.
Charpentier seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
Member Jackson,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right,
you.
thank
Good
you,
night.
everybody. Hey, Greg, really, I know this really isn't your dream job. Thank you for all you do, Greg, seriously.
Oh, I was just talking to John.
Nice job, man.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall.
abstain.
I think I'm gonna get a majority vote. Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member
Greg, perhaps
Sherman,
not. I'm hoping that that violation that I reported to could be discussed.
yeah, that was jumped over. If you'd like to let that motion fail, I can provide a quick update.
I would.
I have to leave. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to leave.
No
Okay.
worries, we saw the quorum, so just, yeah, why don't we do this Chester Square thing? If anyone has 5 minutes, we still have members. Linda, jump off, that's fine.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
there was an identified violation at 1 Chester Square. There's activity, it's immediately adjacent to Lobster Cove. And working with the building inspector's office, they did stop the work. The applicant's been informed of the need to file with the commission. So you'd expect to probably see a filing on your agenda for the next meeting.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Robert, you said you had some photos?
I did provide Greg with some photos. Yes, I happened to notice this work just walking by. I noticed a couple gentlemen were pouring stones into this out property at Winchester Square. This property we've dealt with before, and this is on a filled-in tideland, and also is probably within 30, 40, this work is taking place within 30 or 40 feet of the riverfront. And there was no filing as far as I know. There was considerable cutting, according to reports by the neighbors. Several truckloads of fill was removed from this property. I saw several shrubs that had been probably planted as mitigation for a previous project were removed. Considerable cutting of tree roots that I'm pretty much sure will kill this tree that is, again, within 30 feet of the resource area. So I think it's a pretty egregious violation in my view.
I did notice that it is a new owner, so I'm not sure if they were aware of the Wetlands Protection Act or the regulations, but they have been responsive so far in indicating that they would be making a filing.
All right, well, that's all we can do at this point. Thanks for picking that up, Rob. That's unfortunate to witness it. That is a tricky neighborhood, to say the least.
Mhm.
All right, why don't we try this motion to adjourn one more time?
Charpentier moves to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Gradwall,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes, and thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
and Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you on the 3rd.
All right, thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.